been, I want to say, about 2 years. So when you and I last chatted, Robin, I didn't have a child. I now have a child.
Congratulations. That's great news.
He's a beautiful little boy and he's unvaccinated.
Well, I would expect that, and that's in a way, the fact that we've gone through all this awakening now. I wouldn't have done it to my children if I knew all this, but obviously at the time, a lot of us still trusted the narrative, to some extent.
But I mean, with that in mind, knowing what you know now, would you go back to 2019?
Well, in some funny ways, I think now, maybe more than any other time, I think it's a little bit of a déjà vu, because I'm feeling again that we are living in a situation where some of us have a sense of another impending restriction, which is linked to, the digital grid. But there's a feeling that a whole chunk of society, possibly the majority, probably the majority, instead is again just trusting whatever is given to them. And so I feel, in a way, it's a good time to talk again, also because I feel, again, we're in the same shoes and that I have got the same thoughts, which is, how do you talk to those people and not let them see you as some kind of paranoid conspiracy theory when you say, be careful when you just do whatever you're told to do in terms of, your digital identity in relation to the government. When they say things like, you've got to do this thing online, you've got to do a selfie, you've got to get your biometric link to your, whatever it is that they want, to your email. And again, it seems a little bit difficult to just say, well, look, I've got a passport, I've got a driving license, I can walk in to an office, like an accountant or whatever, say, that's all you should need. And when they say, no, this has to go through the digital route, when you say, I don't want to do that, we shouldn't need to do that, you're looked at as if you're crazy again, because you're the only person probably that has said, look, I think it should be enough for me to show up with a passport. So it's similar in that respect, which is like, so why are you kicking up this big fuss? Why are you? And again, it's like, how do you say to some people that potentially we are all in danger if this goes through very quickly, because then they can do a 2019 in a much more in a much more ruthless way, where you get cut out of your bank account instantly as soon as you say, well, actually, I've got doubts about the face mask,
Your concern is precisely the same as my concern. I have noticed what looks like the opposite of a reawakening. What would that be? Going back into a slumber. So many. Yeah. It's weird. And I don't understand how people can just do that. I mean, have they forgotten what happened in 2020? It's crazy.
Yes, I think they have. I think they have replaced it. They have replaced it in their minds, or they have the sort of the big pandemic narrative. It happened. It happens every 100 years. It was 1918. Now it was our turn. It's a history. There was a Black Death, and so it just sort of, it's put in a memory hole, in a box, and then it's like everything is back to the same. And then if you say, well, what about 9/11? What about, it's still like everything. I think maybe it's like, must be sort of human psychology. You just want to go down your own path, think that all these things happen to other people. It's got nothing to do with you. But now we are again at a time where it is to do with all of us. And so in some respects, again, I feel like it's not really about being afraid of, the sort of Palantir, Peter Thiel, Bill Gates. I mean, they're very few. Those people are very few. The problem is everyone else who goes along with whatever, Larry Ellison or Larry Fink. The problem is everyone who goes along with it. That's our real problem. And that can happen under governments of any color, or, it's really about the people. So once again, I find that if we're able to break the cultural barriers on this. If we're able to ask questions, think, hold on a minute, what happened to the old sort of identify myself by having like just walking in an office with a passport and someone saying, yes, I can, looking at it, saying, yes, it's you. The passport looks authentic, and that's it. What happened to that? Why do we have to do it in a different way? And why are we not allowed? And how do we get this through? How do we make it seem that it's a little bit crazy that you can't do that anymore? You can't just say, it's me, here I am, and this is my document, and that's enough. Why can't, how can we communicate that it's not a normal situation where a government tells you, that's not good enough anymore. It's been good enough since the invention of documents, and now suddenly it isn't.
And it gets worse. When you're on the internet, when you go to a website, it asks you, are you human?
Yeah, well, that is actually you're actually training AI. Did you know that?
Yeah.
When you do that?
Yeah. And you have to find like the fire hydrant.
Yeah, so that's basically telling AI, this is like what fire hydrants or what motorcycles. So you're training them for free. So that's just another scam. That are you human? You're basically training them to recognize things. So
I think it was Matthias Desmet who back in 2021 he brought out, or 2022, when he brought out his book about totalitarianism, and he said that approximately 30% of people at any given stage or time will be awake, so to speak, which is precisely what you said. You said the majority, and basically it will always be around 3 people out of 10 who will kind of see through all this nonsense. And I've always wondered why that is. I know you don't know the answer. It's more of a rhetorical question, but it's a very fascinating psychological observation. Why is it always the minority? And why is it you and why is it me? How were we able to see it? But so many people who we know didn't see it and still don't see it.
Well, I think that's in a way the Asch conformity experiments, where 5 people are put in a room, they're shown a set of lines. One is obviously longer than the others, and they say which one line is sort of longer or which one is shorter, and then you have a specific answer in your mind, and then the 3 people before you say a different one, and you say something, and the 4th one says, they all say the wrong answer at some stage after, I think, is it 3 questions, you just start to go along with what they say. So I think it's probably, if we were to rephrase it, if it is 3 out of 10, I think with this digital idea, it's a slightly different situation. But I think if it was 3 out of 10, it's just that 3 people actually want to think through it, and 7 just want to go along with not having any problems on a societal level, because they're just sort of, they're cruising through their life socially, and they don't want to rustle anyone's feathers. So I think it would probably be that only 3 want to think using their own head, and the other ones just want to go along. But I think this is slightly more insidious, because if you were to ask anyone, do you like digital? Probably most people say no. But then if you say, would you go through the repercussions of not doing it if you were told that you need to do it here in the UK is like to be a company director? Like, would you be ready to see what happens? Possibly even getting issues with your work, or things like that. People will say, no, I'll do it because it's no big deal. So it's a sense that theoretically speaking, everyone is against, but in practice, everyone thinks it's not a big deal, so they just want to go ahead with it. And just linking the theory and practice here it's probably those 3 out of 10, and maybe it's even less, who are linking the two, who are saying, okay, so on one level, I don't like it. On another level, I'm doing it all the time. I'm doing it for every single purchase, for every single government. And, one thing is like, look, I don't care about my relationship with an online shopper. I can just, change it tomorrow. But the other thing is that relationship with the government. You can't really change it tomorrow. So once you're in, you're in.
But it's not just the government, Robin. It's also the private sector. I mean, this is what a public-private partnership is. They work together, and that makes it really, really difficult for us.
Yeah, exactly. That's the other approach, which is more the American approach now, with Apple doing the Apple Digital ID, so you can fly just with your Apple phone throughout all the US. So it's coming in. It's again these kind of slightly different approaches. But in one sense, with the corporate one, again, it sort of gets people subtly to get in. But maybe I feel like you could oppose. It's like when it was with in 2019, you can decide not to go to that establishment where they're going to be really, really strict about the regulations. But I think with the government, it's slightly trickier because you do have to work with them if you are living in any country in some form or the other at some stage in your life anyway, especially if you're running a business. I'm not willing to leave the whole cultural field to the machine. I'm not willing to do that, and although I'm willing to step away from the club because they're all kind of clubs, and say, look, you don't want to have. I know you don't want to have anything to do with me because I oppose, lockdowns, oppose vaccines, I oppose the man-made climate catastrophe narrative, and those are all big no-nos. So I know you don't want to have anything to do with me, but I still want to participate in the cultural field on my own terms and the terms of people that I feel are more on the right track. So it is a bit of a battle, but I think it is, that my point is that this is an important battle because that is potentially the area that swings things. It's done it before. Underground culture has done it before. Initially, it's a few people that at that time, at that time they're seen as a dangerous minority, dangerous underground culture. And usually it used to be youth. Now it's sort of the youth are not necessarily that well represented in the awakening, but it's done it before. So the group starts to produce things which are then seem cool because they're against the grain, they're against the sort of the average mediocre production of that time, and they're quite cool, and that kind of coolness becomes attractive, it becomes exciting, and then suddenly the whole masses want to be that, and they start dressing like them, they start listening. So I don't think this has happened yet on our side, but I don't think we should underestimate that is potentially like one of the strongest areas to use, if we can, to our advantage, at least to claw back some territory. And the reason is probably quite basic, which is the Asch experiments, conformity. At least in the UK, everyone in the arts is glued to like The Guardian. That's the only thing they read. Everything else is sort of the enemy's news. Like X is like X. You don't even talk about X. It's like just, and Telegram is some weird, Russian Pavel Durov conspiracy theorist, and X is like Elon Musk, who's now the demon because he helped Trump. So you just go to this Guardian world or Instagram where everything is kind of phased out, and then you see what do other people say, and you just go along with it. To the point that actually I went with to lunch with Eric on Monday, I think last week, and I think went into a very nice restaurant. But he noticed that when he came in even before me, and then I noticed I'm not sure they were that happy that we were there. Like they knew who he was. I don't know if they knew who I was, but I got the sense that you kind of have a sense where other times people look very excited that Eric will walk in, but I almost had a sense, and it was a very cool place, young, cool. So I almost got the sense they may be still on the program, which is that for some reason, someone who spoke about the deterioration of his condition, his physical condition after the AstraZeneca inject vaccine, who talked about it publicly, to me on paper and on camera is somehow condemned by that kind of media or that kind of world at that time. And they obviously they have not thought it through. They just think, okay, you are associated to this and that. And I think there's still a lot of that going on. A lot of like, but hold on a minute, but have you thought it through? You're thinking that someone who's talking about their own experience, medical experience, is somehow a bad person. It's like, because again, the group thing is still quite strong. But as you said, I think people don't really want to go there. Like before, at the time, you felt people were fighting you. They were like, you said something, they would just jump at you. At the moment, if we say anything about that, it's just going to be total silence. Yes. They're quiet.
Have you noticed what's funny? In 2021, 2022, everybody spoke about getting jabbed and they were very open about being vaccinated. Now, if you ask anything to do with the COVID jab, it's like, it's my right to say nothing. Who are you to ask me questions like that?
Yeah, so I had also stopped, but now there's been, I think the worth of Claire Craig, I think she's doing a court case perhaps because of the UK health agency not releasing the data that would indicate whether there is some kind of correlation between the time of injection of the COVID injections and excess deaths. They used to publish this data and then suddenly they stopped. And now this data would be quite important to show whether there is a correlation, whether after people get injected, there's more deaths. After people got injected, actually, they say that there were more deaths. And so now they have pressed the government for that. And they said, no, we're not releasing this data because it could upset people if they were to sort of see some potential link between the two. It's like it's against the interest of the public because the public it could destabilize the public. That's the official answer. But that's been published on the Daily Telegraph. Now, none of the artists are going to go and look at that because it's not on The Guardian. None of the sort of creators will look at that. But still, I'm sharing it. I'm sharing it again. And if I'd shared something like that a few years ago, I would get like hounded by all of these comments and all of these things. And now there's just complete, total silence from the other side. So it's either removed for psychological reasons, or again, it's not. They sense they're on the weak side, so they're just not going to show up because it's sort of what they say could be interpreted as they become conspiracy theorists. By the way, I don't know if you've seen it yet, but there's a good take on this, whether it's, I think it may be conscious, in the film, the latest film by Lantimos called Begonia.
No.
I don't think it's, not sure if it's out yet, but I think it's worth a watch because at the beginning, I didn't know what was going to happen. I'm not going to say the plot, but the main character, Emma Stone, she's the head of a kind of big pharma company. And then you've got two people who are like conspiracy theorists. And they are the exact stereotype of the conspiracy theorist living in his mum's basement. And being, kind of...
What's it called again?
Begonia.
Begonia. I'm having a quick look. Carry on.
Bugonia. And so you got these conspiracy theorists, and they are the exact sort of kind of archetype of the sort of dispredative view of conspiracy theorists that are not doing anything with their lives, are totally removed from rationality. So you sit through all of that, and I had asked sort of people who had seen it, like people who were probably not awake, about what they thought, and they said, "Oh, it's just really mad. It's really crazy." And then I watched it, and it's a little bit painful when you see these stereotypes. But then there's a twist at the end, which I'm not going to say. But the twist at the end, in a way, makes you wonder whether that was all intentional, to take people to this place of comfort of their views, and then just to turn it upside down at the very end. So a normal person would say it's just a mad film. But someone who's been living through 2019 to now says, well, that's a very clever way of planting that message at a subconscious level in the majority of the population, because this is going to be a very popular film, and that is like, in a way, you want to do it with what people realizing what you're doing, and I think they succeed at that. Now, I suspect they're very clever and it's intentional, but sometimes these things even happen at other levels, that people start to show messages because they're channeling something bigger. They may not even be aware, but I think they're clever enough to have thought it through.
This is a very, very good observation that you made, because it's exactly the same observation that I made about an Apple movie. So I have been wondering, Robin, if there are people like us, quote unquote, in Hollywood who are too afraid to speak out because of the way Hollywood is. And the only way they can do it is by, as you say, planting seeds.
And especially if it can challenge. This is, I mean, in a way, this is what, especially in the 70s, which was a time of, similar time to the high inflation, basically, devaluing of currencies. There was also, friends of mine reminded me in Italy that there was a lockdown. People don't remember it, but there was a national lockdown to save petrol, to save gas because of the oil gas crisis. So people were told by the government, you shouldn't be driving. So we already had lockdowns in that respect. We forgot. But you had films like Soylent Green. You had a lot of sort of sci-fis which were really kind of scratching the surface of what was really happening. And that was, a lot of them were American, some of them are sort of Hollywood related. So there is a history of trying to get this through to the masses in this kind of way. And I think, in a way, that's where you succeed. Through film and music that it's not only watched by that 3 out of 10, but it ends up being watched by those 7 out of 10. And that's where the ideas are formed and created that can actually swing this. And I think, in a way, when I say this, I mean, I know you're sort of quite artistically minded as well, but when I say it to people who are not, I can get different responses. One of them may be just sort of total blank. They don't really see how this has anything to do with anything. This is just sort of, in a way, kind of decoration, and the real issue instead is like political, and this has got nothing to do with anything. And then the other one is there's a sort of slight tap on the back, like, well done for doing that, but there's no support or understanding. Now, I've been, as I've worked sort of in the arts all my life, I've seen instead what happens when you do something which reinforces the other view, which at this, at some stage people called the left. Now we know it's not the left, but, let's say it was the left. When anyone does anything which is even slightly political on that side, you get so much support. You get people everyone really supporting you, everyone helping you out, and whatever you produce is going to be amplified like 1,000,000 times because it's got a slight political edge. But on our side of the fence, you don't get anything. And I think that's one of the biggest weakness on our side. I wouldn't call it right or left. I would call it awake and asleep. But, sort of the asleep that think they are awake because they support the alleged fake left, whatever they do gets helped by all their peers, all the industry, all the public figures, all the influencers and all of that, because they feel they're sharing some kind of political angle. We share a political angle. You and I do something, a cartoon, a song, a film, or something like that, and you'll just get a mild, yeah, well done. That's it. That's not gonna be enough to balance out what they're doing. That's kind of what my point is. So if it's not making a difference, partially it's to do because we're not supporting each other, and all we're supporting is one form of cultural production, which is important, which is the podcast, and the podcast of, I don't know, Candace Owens or Joe Rogan or Tucker Carlson. But the other side, the non-awake, are never going to watch any of that. They're going to see Candace Owens, they're going to switch it off. They're going to see Joe Rogan and they're going to think it's the devil. They're going to see Tucker Carlson, they're going to think, no way. So it's not going to cross the boundary. It's going to do a lot for our side, for people who are undecided, but it's not going to be so broad. And when we do things that potentially could be broad, we don't get any support from our own side, which I think is a biggest weakness, and partially maybe related to this very analytical mind. Because, at some stage we figured out intuitively that we were being taken for a ride, in 9/11, 2019, 2020. But then what really confirmed this was the analytical mind that started looking, okay, what happened in history? What happened at that building? What happened how big are if viruses are what is transmitted? How big are they? What's the gap in a mask? How is this replicate? What is the sort of what is it called? The sort of the death rate of flu? What is the death rate of the? Oh, hold on a minute. There's not a huge difference. What age do people die? Oh, they die when they're 1 or 2 years higher than the average death rate in that kind. So you start to figure out analytically. And the problem is that analytical mind, what we've seen is whenever you present it to someone who isn't emotionally ready, it's just going to be blank. So we only convinced ourselves ultimately. And the other mind can do more. So on one level, what I'm saying to myself is like, if I don't know if I'm going to have to be living like this for the rest of my life in this state of constant, kind of objection to increasing tyranny, or if at some stage it's going to be so bad I won't be able to speak. But for as long as I can speak, I'd like to do it with a slight smile on my face, maybe even if it's dark humor. So enjoy it to some extent, because otherwise you're going to end up getting diseases. If you're always stressed out, you get disease. And part of the enjoyment is to make it a little bit creative and not to be that face which says, it's all, guys, it's happening. The moment that I've been talking to you about is happening now, and we have to resist. In fact, we all know that. But how do you have a good life, enjoy your life, but at the same time create as many problems as you can for the other side with a smile on your face? That's how I would like to do it.
You've just created my segue. So you, speaking of creativity and entertainment and with a smile on your face, you sent me 2 videos, which I'm very happy to play. I'm pretty certain that they're not going to get flagged for any copyright issues. Tell me more about the 2 videos.
We'll challenge them. We'll challenge them if they do that, because with the sort of all these algorithms, you never know what they do. So we've got. I started working with Thomas Atlas, who's a singer-songwriter who he also played the Sounds Beautiful Festival in the UK this summer, and he contacted me. I think he had seen the work I had done as a lyricist with Eric Clapton, and he's a big Clapton fan. He knows all of his work. And so he contacted me because he had an idea about doing something which was to do about people being fooled. And I just sort of started working on the lyrics. And, I kind of listened to the riff, to a little bit of the tune, and we started working something that could go with it. And then he would sort of adapt it a little bit for the song. And then in the end, the song is out now. It's called Fooling Me. And it's about, I guess it's a little bit with a smile on the face about this experience of having all of these things that they keep on throwing at us. And then having a sense that actually it's like, you got to be joking. It's like you see the Olympics, you got to be joking. You see that what they're saying about climate, and then they're saying, oh, we're going to sort of spend all of our budget in making weapons out of explosives and steel. But then you're meant to be driving a bike. You got to be joking. So all the contradictions, and I'm putting it in a song, which can potentially jump a little bit across to the other side, because it's done in a good spirit. I think it's got a good energy, good music, and it's not over. It's not done in an alarming way. Like, you know, it can be done in an alarming way with like sort of death metal, kind of really you know. And I'm not saying that that's not a good form of music for people who like it, but it's not. It's gonna just scare people who are not ready. Whereas if you do it with a bit of a sort of, you know, in this case, there's a bit of a guitar riff. It's bluesy. It's a little bit sort of funk, and it can be more fun for other people to sit through, and then to ask the question, well, maybe we are being fooled in some ways.
Well, you can chat to me about the second one after this. Let me see if I can get this to play.
Was it not cause for alarm when in a boxing ring a man hit a woman live on a global TV screen? Was it even real or a made-up scene? Did you hear that these days heart attacks are on the rise? Ooh. Doctor, please say to me, can it be no one knows why? Do tell me, was it one big lie? Better be kidding, serious you can be. You gotta be messing, you gotta be fooling me. Told us we must burn if we don't cut the carbon. No. When it comes to their turn, they keep selling more weapons. Alright. Oh, please hold on for a second now. Better be kidding, serious you can be. You gotta be messing. You gotta be kidding, serious you can be. You gotta be messing. You gotta be fooling me. The pound loses worth, food prices skyrocket, they pay themselves more, nothing left in our pocket. No. The whole system's so rotten, yes it is. The Cossacks are coming, we must fight them, they say. When their kids are grown up, they're the first to run away. No morality left at the end of the day. You better be kidding, serious you can be. You gotta be messing, gotta be fooling me. Gotta be fooling me. Gotta be fooling me.
love that ending. I love that
Yeah.
ending. I love that sort of double time at the end. So what was your involvement with that song? Did you write it?
With this one, I wrote the lyrics. Thomas came up with the idea, and Sam, the guitarist, came up with the riff. The rest of the band did a good job musically.
Outstanding.
Yeah, I think they had the music, they had the concept and the music, and I put the words in to fit with that.
It's so good, Robin. And
yeah, I think it's good. And
where was it filmed? Where was it filmed? In a library?
It's filmed in a small record shop. Well, the size you can see in a record shop in Birmingham.
Okay, sorry.
Real record shop with vinyl all around.
Okay,
quite a historical record shop in Birmingham. Now, if a song of equivalent, I guess, creativity, lyrics, quality, or something like that had been done, let's say for the other side, if it was maybe making fun of conspiracy theorists, or I don't know, whatever what they really like. I'm not going to say like anti-Trump because that's almost too obvious, but if it was done, something like this would really be known by everyone already. It's doing well. People are watching it from all parts of the world. We weren't really sure whether it would raise like objections to it because of the lyrics, but I think because it's not aggressive in the way it's done in the lyrics too. It kind of points at things, but it doesn't sort of start to sort of condemn in such a direct way. In that way, I think most people who have seen it, who are not political, haven't really. I think apparently only one person has said, "Oh, it's a bit too political for me," but one out of sort of thousands. I think most people are accepting it and seeing the fun, and even publications which have music publications that have covered it have said, it's quite witty and things like that. They haven't said, "Oh, it's like a conspiracy theorist" or something like that. So I think it's working this fine line quite well of being sort of against the system, but not being confrontational in such a way that people get alienated. Or maybe the music is so good that people can't just react in such a sort of fearful way because they are warmed up by the musical aspect of it. But again, I think something like this, if it was for the sort of asleep side, they'd be sort of they'd be really helping it through a lot more than I think our side would be doing, or is doing. And I think now it's been listened to a lot of people across the board. It's not just the 3 out of 10 who are listening to this, So I think that it may also be that we need to get in a even more below the radar way. Like do a song which is not political at all. So now we are thinking with Thomas to do a sort of a kind of Christmassy song. So to really get in below the radar, do something which is not political. So you get these people warm up with you as just an artist and a lyricist working with a lyricist. Do that, get them to feel comfortable with that, and then throw once in a while something. So not just do the sort of kind of against the system songs, but do a bit of a mix so that people feel comfortable. But then occasionally you throw some message there. I think maybe this is what we're going to try next.
Well, I mean, that's also a very good strategy. A lot of musicians do that. They will just have normal stuff, and then here and there they'll drop in, a few seeds that will grow in the mind of the listener, and that's also a great strategy too, because not everybody likes in your face.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think that's probably the next step, to start doing things which really people let their guard down because they're not political at all, and get sort of claw our way back to the cultural sphere a little bit more like that. I think that's probably what we're doing next.
I've got another song here from you called Shackles on Me.
Yeah, so the Shackles on Me is a song that was composed by Jimmy Vaughan, and that was composed actually quite a while back, in the early 2000s, because with this thing about the ID and the sort of controlling everyone, obviously it's been around for a while, and then they come back with another wave, a little bit like with the whole kind of, like influenza or COVID, it's like every so many years. What was the other one that they had tried before with the Tamiflu? And that was it? I can't remember what was that, the sort of the first attempt, another attempt. But anyways, it's the same with all of this kind of ID issues. That was another wave. And so Jimmy Vaughan had created this song in the US in a way to resist that. And his lyrics, he had national ID. And I came across this song. Jimmy is plays with Eric when Eric plays in the US, and I had listened to it, and Eric had made me listen to another version of it. And I had said to Thomas, well, have you considered covering this song? Now we've got this digital ID. We'll just change the word to digital ID, but the song is pretty much there. You can do your own version. And he said, well, that sounds quite a challenge, which I'd like to take on. And so let's just make sure he's happy. Jimmy Vaughan is happy if we change, digital ID. So through Eric asked Jimmy, and Jimmy said, that's why I did. That's why I wrote the song, exactly for what you want to use it for. So he was happy to take it on, and so Thomas, using pretty much Jimmy's song and just this change that I suggested, digital ID, recorded his version. So updated it to the situation now that we're in now, really. And again, it's partially because I think a lot of people don't realize that the potential gravity of the digital ID situation. So this is a way that I tried, especially putting this on Instagram, to get people to think, oh, okay, maybe there is an issue.
Shackles, don't want no shackles on me. Don't want no shackles, don't want no shackles on me. I say down to big brother, don't you tread on me. I got the blues about freedom, got the blues about tyranny. Got the blues about my freedom, got the blues about tyranny. I sit down with big brother, don't like that digital ID. Chip in my car, and if I wanna travel, it's nobody's business how far. Don't want these shackles, don't want these shackles on me. I say down with big brother, I say down with big brother, don't like that digital ID. I sit down with big brother,
Sheesh, Robin, that is next level professional. His voice, the guitar playing, the tone of that Fender, and the lyrics, it's just so well put together.
Yeah, he said he got that take about 4 a.m. in the morning after having gone to the studio about 4 p.m. And just setting everything up by himself. And, you know, this is what one man and his voice and his guitar and a composition can do.
Yeah, but you can hear that level of professionalism. It's so good.
Yeah, he's got a great voice, and he's a great guitar player. And
I see he's not even playing with a plectrum; he's just using his fingers.
Yeah, and in the next one, if it comes together, he'll be playing all the instruments.
He will play all the instruments. Yeah. That's how you know you're a musician.
Yeah.
You know the old joke though about a drummer. You know the whole thing about drummers not being musicians.
Go ahead.
I can't remember the joke, but I've ruined it now because I said that drummers are musicians. But there's apparently this whole sort of thing within the music industry that you have the band, and then the guy that hangs out with the band is the drummer.
Well, if you take some, you know, like some songs, I don't know which ones, but let's say if you take some Cream songs with Ginger Baker, or even some songs that I don't know, some Derek and the Dominoes, or Eric Clapton, Derek and the Dominoes period, and you isolate the drums and you just listen to the drums. It's amazing, you know, to listen to like a song just from a good drummer, just from the drums. It's an amazing experience because we tune out of it. Usually we just keep the beat with the drummer, but we really go melodic. We listen to the voice, we listen to the melodic guitar, the bass sort of moves a little bit, but we just sort of feel it, but don't really focus on it. But when you end up focusing on it, it's incredible what you know, the kind of thing that a drumming energy can do.
John Bonham was one of the greatest drummers.
Yeah. So I think it's you know, that's the great thing about a band, you know, when it all comes together, and you know everyone is participating and adding.
Robin, something that really upset me during the COVID era was how few musicians actually took a stand.
Yeah, I mean the establishment learned a lot from the war in Vietnam. They learned from the war itself that if you're going to fight a war, you want people from another country to die, not your own people. So they've learned that, you know, drafting people up is not popular measure. If you can convince another nation to fight it for you, that's a much better strategy. So whenever they think of a war now, they think, okay, who can we get to fight who? And not sort of send our own people because that's unpopular. Not that they don't want to do that. They'd rather kill them with something else, not at war. And then they also learned the potential power of a young mind that's musical that can create this youthful musical spirit with rebellious lyrics to it. They learned that if that happens, it's almost unstoppable unless you actually kill them. And, you know, we know, like, the leaders of all of that, how many of them ended up being killed in suspicious circumstances or dying in relatively suspicious, like, very rare diseases, or, like, alleged binges. Now, we don't know if the binge was the reason or not, but anyways, we know how many. And so I think the establishment learned that you have to control you have to control the musical production. And so in some ways you can't allow unvetted young creative people in, and you can't let them have a platform that's natural. So the algorithm is deciding now who listens to what. And if the band is safe, the algorithm sort of lets them being heard. And if the band is not really known, not potentially safe, it has to be vetted that way. So I think the people who we heard had been vetted, maybe they were rebels 60 years ago, but this rebellious spirit is a youthful energy, ultimately. It's a rebellion against the older generation. And the youth has been controlled now through the mobile phone, through the smartphone and the social media apps that they're using now, whether it's now whatever it is now, Snapchat or whatever it is, TikTok. But they're being sort of controlled through that. And so they probably don't have this unfiltered youth network. What they're seeing has already been filtered by the algorithm. And, the older generation, they've got too much to lose. Also, like in general, all these rock stars, they have not been the most monogamous people on the planet. And so they don't want whatever setup they have now, emotional setup, family setup, they don't want it to be torn apart by whatever revelation would come. The day after they oppose the vaccine, they'll be, oh, hold on a minute, what's that photo? What's that affair there? What's that, is that child your child? They've got all of these skeletons in their closet from their private life that they know very well that the moment they actually say it. So it's easier for them to just go along with it. Whereas someone who's 19, 20, 21, they haven't gotten married yet. They don't have this sense that they will upset like children and grandchildren by knowing what they've done when they were a little bit younger. So it's much easier in a way to control people who have already done a lot of bad things than a youthful energy. And the youthful energy is being controlled by the algorithm and by whatever they're being shown and by the public perception, because in a way we saw leadership in people who were slightly older. We haven't seen much leadership in that youthful generation that was during COVID. I think I'm seeing now a younger generation, one that actually lived through maybe the lockdown, and at the time went along with it because they were too young to do anything, but now has a sense, hold on a minute, that was all a load of rubbish. The world we live in is full of a load of rubbish, and I'm aware of it, and I'm never going to be that person that's blinded to think everything is fine. We've just got people in authority that are trying their best, and so I think there's a whole chunk of people who are coming out of the lockdown who maybe are not saying anything yet, but they're not going to fall in this kind of stupor and this kind of sleepiness that we had throughout the whole Obama period and beyond, where a lot of people thought everything is fine, we've got great leaders and everything.
And those people just they just need a little bit of a nudge, that's all.
Yeah, I think those people needed a little bit of a nudge. They were sort of aware things were not that great. They saw also the whole October 7th situation, and even if they never said anything, they sort of could see that the official version did not correspond to the real events. The reaction was not justified by the alleged course of events. And so they know that all of that was manufactured as well, but they didn't say anything in COVID. They're not going to jump into that openly because they're still trying to create their own life. But they know that there's been a constant series of situations that we're being led through. And I'm hoping at some stage they'll be able to join us because we need them.
Time is against us. Okay, so for those who want to follow you, how can they?
Okay, well, I'm active on mainly a couple of platforms. One of them is X, and my handle is at Robin Monotti, with 2 T's, and the other one is Telegram, and the handle of the channel is at Robin MG. And then also, I think musical stuff come out on Instagram, and again, handle is Robin Monotti. That's more musical with an occasional peppering of other things, because I find that actually the other platforms like X are not, again, they're not that artist friendly. Like songs don't go that far, so in some ways I'm using the enemy's platforms, especially like when it comes to music. But I think in a way we have to do that if we want to talk to the other side as well. I know people that will never go on anything, but they may still look at Instagram. So,
Robin Monotti, thank you for joining me in the trenches.
Thank you for having me on. Good to see you.